Hi. In the previous session, we have had a introduction to Unix and how we saw how to connect to Unix machine and how to connect or how to execute some commands, and we also saw how to get the help from Unix. Right? And today's session, we will be seeing how to create a user and then how to log in to that user, and also we will be seeing what is the home directory, how the home directory is being assigned, and also we will be seeing how a user can change his passwords. Right?
Okay.
So in the beginning, I was telling that a user can be created by a super user, or a user has been assigned with that particular privileges. So how to grant the privileges to a user to create another user, we will be seeing when we are taking the privileges session. So for the time being, we will be logging as the super user or the root user, and then we will be creating a user from the super user. Is that clear?
Okay.
As of now, I have logged on to this machine. That is the Vaishnavi Lab server as Vaishnavi user. Okay, he is not a super user. For example, I am trying to create a user by giving command say user add test. It's getting error message that user add command not found, because the reason is that this is not a super user. Now let's switch the user let's switch from Vaishnavi user to super user. From one user, if you want to switch to another user, you have to use the command su. Okay, so su hyphen root. Su stands for switch user. Hyphen is a command which hyphen is an option where in which all the privileges of that particular user will be available once we are switching to that user. Is that clear?
I didn't understand.
So there are two different ways of when you are switching. One is that you can switch without the hyphen option, or else with the hyphen option.
Okay.
Okay. When you are logging to SU without the hyphen option, you may not be able to get all the privileges of the user. For example,
That is root user.
Root user. So to get all the privileges of that user, you should, if you are from if you are on one user, and if you want to switch to another user, and you want to get all the privileges of that user, then you should use the command su space hyphen space the username.
Okay.
So I'm giving root, and then definitely it will be, because I'm switching to another user, so it will be asking me the password. So I'm giving the password here. Okay. Now I have logged on to that machine as a root user, and you can see that the username is root coming here at the machine name. And also you would have observe one more thing: the prompt has been changed. For a normal user, the prompt was $ prompt, and for the super user, that is a hash symbol.
Okay.
Okay. So there is one easy way to find out what is the privilege at which you have logged on. Okay. And if you have some questions or some doubts, like ask what user you are now, then you can just give the command ID.
Okay.
ID. Now when I just give the ID, I'm getting the information like the username is root. You can see this, and for every user in the Unix operating system, there is a user ID there. And you can see that UID equal to 0. Right? Because that is the first user that has been created, the user ID is 0. And then the user will be belonging to a group. A group is nothing but a collection of users with the similar privileges. Okay, so here the group is root, and for the group also there is a group ID that is also 0. Right?
Okay.
And also another you are getting information like there is something called groups. Okay, that means a user can be a part of multiple groups. Okay, a user is a part of 5 groups. Out of these 5 groups, only one group can be his primary group. All the other groups will be the secondary groups. Okay. So the GID shows that the primary group of that user. Okay. And the group shows his primary group as well as the secondary groups. For example, in this case, root user whose primary group is root, and the secondary groups are bin, daemon, sys, ADM, disk, wheel, etc.
Okay.
So the groups option includes both his primary group as well as the secondary group.
Okay.
Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay. Now we are in the super user, right? Now, if you want to know whether you are already connected to some user, and from that user whether you switch to some other user. In this case, we logged on to the server as voice user, and from there we switch to root user, right? So if you want to know like any switching has happened or not, you just issue the command who am I.
Okay.
Who am I? When I'm issuing that one, it gives you a message like as what user I have logged on to the server. You have to know whether I have switched or not. So here I am getting the message, I have logged on to the machine as voice user.
Okay.
Okay. And what is my current user information is getting from the ID command. So when these are not matching, it's obvious that we have done a switching.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, say, as we are in the super user, right? Now, let's try to switch to voice user, or maybe say, let's try to switch to let's try to switch to Oracle user, or else maybe okay, user called Shivaji. Okay, you could have seen that it didn't ask any password.
Yes.
But when we switch to root user, it asks the password.
Yes.
Okay. Now I'm just giving the command ID. You can see that I am Shivaji under the. Now let's Shivaji tries to log on to voice user. It asks for the password.
Okay.
Okay. So what it means?
From the super user, if we are switching to other users, there is no authentication required.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. When you are in a super user, you are the most privileged user, right? So when you are in the most privileged user and you wanted to connect to some other user, there is no password prompt. And also, the super user have the privilege to access any file, even though the user don't have a privilege. For example, here there are two users are there, Varshit and Shivaji, the two users are there. So, for example, Varshit may give some privileges to Shivaji. Some privileges he may, for some files he would not have given the privilege also. But that privileges are not applicable for the super user. Super user can access any file, he can delete any file. So the complete authority on this operating system is there for the root user or the super user.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
We'll come back and we'll try to create a user. Okay? The simplest command to create a user is user add the username. For example, I am going to create a user called test with the command user add. Okay? The user has been added. How you can confirm whether the user has been added or not? By just giving the command id space test or id space the username. Okay? So you can see that a user called test has been created with a user ID of 527. Okay, and a group is being created with the group ID is called 527, and this user is belongs to the group test. Only one group is there. Here the user called test is belonging to group called test. Only there is no other secondary groups are available for this user.
Okay. This UID and group ID are all default, or can we set manually?
Yeah. This user ID or the group ID is coming from two files. Basically, what happens then? Unix, if you are not specifying a group ID, first point to be noted, group ID and the user ID. Whenever you are how the way you can we are creating a user, the same way we can create groups also. Okay. So when you are creating user or group, the user ID and the group IDs are being used. So that should be unique on this operating system. You got me? There cannot be one more user with the user ID 527. Right? So how Unix is Unix is making sure that there is a uniqueness is there. What Unix does is it is using a calculation in the sense what is the maximum user ID given for any user in this machine. To that it will be adding one more number. For example, I'm just going to create a user called the test1. Remember the user ID of the test user is 527. Now let's try to create test1. Okay, and just issue command ID test1. You can see that it has been created 528. So what it means? It means that Unix is assigning a unique number which is one greater than the highest user ID on this operating system.
Okay.
Yeah?
For the test1 user, could we give the same group ID as 527?
Yeah, that is possible. Okay. Now let's do one thing. Let's try to create one more user who will be belonging to the group called test, whose group ID is 527. Okay. So now we will be giving more. So the point here is that when you are just using the smallest command or the simplest command to create a user, then that user will be created with all the default options. Now we will create a more complicated command for creating a user. By giving the command user add -u, I give 529, a user ID by myself.
Okay.
Okay, and then -small g. That is, I am deciding what is the primary group for that user. I want he to be part of the test1 group. Okay, and I'll create a user called new user. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Press enter key. The user has been created, and now just issue the ID new user and see what's happening. You can see that the user ID is 529, group ID, GID, remember GID is the primary group, it displays the primary group of the user. So it is 527 because we have given -small g space test. So test becomes the primary group of this particular user.
Yes.
Okay, and he belongs to the other groups like test and test1. So the test is his primary group and test1 is his secondary group. Is that clear?
Okay. Yes.
Okay. Now, when you create a user, these user informations are kept on a file known as etc/etc. When I created on a file called password, which is on the etc folder. For example, ls-l/etc/passwd. Okay. Now let's open this file using the vu/etc/passwd. Okay, you can see that all the users created on the operating system, this operating system, has an entry on this file. Can you see this? Okay. Now let's see if you're taking this example. You can see that the first letter is the username. Okay. The second letter, that Hindu mark that you're seeing, right? See, there are different fields which are separated by a column, right? The first one is coming as test, then a column. That means the first field is completed. Then the second field is being represented by an Hindu mark, which is a hidden format for that particular user's password.
What is that hidden format? I didn't understand.
See, the password for that user is encrypted and displayed with a Hindu mark. If you're looking for all the users, the password is always shown as Hindu mark only. That means even the super user also cannot find out the password of a user. You got me?
Okay, yes.
So if a user has forgotten his password, the only option for a super user is that he can change his password, but super user can never see the password of another user for the security concerns.
Okay.
Yeah? And then the next letter, 527, is showing the user ID. the next 527 is showing the group ID, and then the next the home/test is the home directory of that user, and then bin/bash is the shell that is used by this user, or the shell that is being assigned to that user. So don't worry about the shell path for the time being. We'll see about the shell in our next classes.
Okay.
So now if you're looking at the next example, okay, you can see that the new user username is password is encrypted, and 529 is the user ID, and 527 is the test. If you remember correctly, we have created the user with the primary group of test. So the primary group ID is showing us as 527. The secondary group informations are not shown on the /etc/password file.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And it shows the home directory /home/new user.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions on this? Is this clear or any questions?
Yeah, it's clear.
No. Now the same way how we created the user, the same way like say, this command can be more elaborative. You can change the user home directory during the time of creation. For example, if you wanted to create a user with the 530, because okay, we'll see what is the error what we are going to get if you are not changing the user ID. So new user and then -d stands for the home directory, which is home/new user 1. Okay, so here what I did is I created a user called new user 1, and also apart from previous setups, the additional thing is that we are specifying the home directory of that user by giving the command -d/home/new user 1.
Okay.
Okay. So you are getting an error message that user ID is not unique because this has been assigned to another user. So we have to, when you are giving manually, we have to find out what is the highest user ID that is available, and you have to give a value greater than that. So I'm giving.
Is there any command to find the highest UID?
No, there is no option. We have to just set in the /etc/password file.
Okay.
So because the users in the /etc/password is always written in the order. So the last user in that particular file will be the last user being, last entry on the etc password indicates that latest user. So you have to find out that user ID and then give a user ID higher than that value. It is not mandated that you should give the higher value. Say, for example, I created a user, say, in this example. Let's create a user with the user ID 700. Okay, it's possible. Created. Okay. Now in order to give the user as 700, I can give in 600 also. It should be unique. That's the point here. Got it?
Yes.
Now let's see what is happening that if you are just creating a user. User add new user 3. Okay, ID new user 3. Here you can see that the 700 was the highest value, so Unix took one value greater than the maximum value. But when you are creating the manual command, it may not be the highest value every time. So now we have seen that how to create a user, and we'll see how to change the password of a user. Okay. As of now, we have created the user, but we have not given any password for that user. So you can create the password for that user by giving the command passwd, then the username. Again, this is from super user. So I'm just giving the command new user passwd. Remember, it's not password. It is passwd. Space the username. When asked for the username, I'm just giving us Oracle. And retype the new password. It's Oracle. Okay. Now let's try how to log on to this user. So what I'll do that I'll be switching to, first I'll switch to Wished user, and from Wished user I'll switch to new user one. Sorry, new user. Now it will be asking me the password. So I'll give the password as Oracle. Now the new user could log on to that machine. Just give ID. The username is new user.
Okay.
Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay. Now we'll come back and say we'll see how to how to create a user. Now how to delete a user. The command to delete a user is user del. Okay. When you are giving the user del, there are different options are there. -f force removal of the files. Like if the user's home directory or any other users are there, or sorry, any other files are there, all the files will be deleted. And then -r stands for, when you are giving the command, it will be removing all the home. It will remove the home directory of that user. Right. So if you wanted to remove the user and all the files created by him, you can issue the command user del -f-r, then the username. For example, new user.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
Right? But remember, a user will not be okay. Now we have seen that how to create a user and how to log on to that user, and we will see say how a user can change the password of next one. How we have seen how the super user can change the password. We'll also see how a user can change the password. For example, let me change the password of a user. That password test. I'll give the option. Okay. Now I'll switch to that user test. Fine. Now if I want to change that means the test user wants to change his password. The command will be tswd, then press the enter key. Okay. Then it is remember it is asking that what is the current password for that user. I have to give the current password, and then it's asking the new password. I'll give something like test12 $. It is telling that bad password, it is based on your username, because Unix is doing a lot of checking when you are giving a password. But when a super user is giving the password, it is not going to check anything, because for example, the test user, I have given the password as Oracle. So let me just give something called Linux. Okay, it is telling that the password is too short. So we have to give a password which is minimum 8 letters character, which comes of a combination of letters and digits. Right. So let me just give welcome $12. It is again telling that this is already a dictionary password, and it's failed. So let me try once again. The current password and then new password India 123. India 123. Okay, I'm just giving the command new India 123. So now it is accepted. So when the point here is that when a user is creating a or changing the password, the Unix password verification policies are in place. But when a super user is changing the password of a user, no your password validation policies will be applicable.
Okay.
Clear?
Yes.
Now we'll see how to create a group also. The command to create the group are group add -g if you want to give a group number. For example, we'll give a group number called 600. Fine. And then group name. Test grp. The group is being created. If you are not specifying -g and the group, then the group number will be a unique number. The same policies or same principle applied for the user creation. That the uniqueness will be maintained by the operating system automatically. Otherwise, when you are switching the group number, you have to maintain the uniqueness of the group number. Clear? Okay. Now, the group information is available on a file called /etc/groups. So, it's group. /etc/group. Again, let me clear it. The file name is /etc/group. Okay. Now, if you are opening that file, view /etc/group, you can see that all the groups which have been created on the operating system till now will be available.
Okay.
So now the test group is the one which you create with the group ID 6 and 1. Fine. Now the same way, if you wanted to drop a group, you can issue the command group DL group name. That is test